sure we remember the former governor of Sokoto, Bafarawa. At the time they were investigating how Dasuki, the former NSA, distributed the $2 billion they say they shared out. A former governor of Sokoto accounted for what came to him, $4 billion for Marabout. That is occultic manipulation. So if you do not realize that the people who are sharing trillions every month are taking steps to keep you in your ignorance, then you better hear it and know it. That's part of what they're doing, apart from removing history and civic studies and all kinds of things, and getting the church leaders to block you from hearing anything, and getting the media to block this information from getting on their major platforms, and getting the political parties to drag you to to elections every 4 years. They are all together in that coffin where your blood is shared. And so, definitive demand, that is why we say defining the change we seek and distilling the demands that will deliver that outcome. They are not, that is the protection. That is the protection for those who are heading into it. Because once you raise that demand, it changes the entire equation. And it does not take anything from you to say the correct thing that disarms your enemy. Every other thing you say gives them a problem to stand, to shoot at you, to contain you, to divide you, to throw money at you, throw intimidation at others. And so they can't find any answers, any other answers to these 5 points, if that is what you have done as a demand. And it will reduce to one. We want this constitution out. We want transition immediately so that we can go and rework the unworkable unitary constitution that has brought Nigeria to all of these catastrophes. I'll stop here.
Thank you for listening. Please join me in welcoming the NINA spokesperson, Mr. Tony Nnadi. He will be sharing his thoughts on today's topic, Nigerian Protest 2024. End-1999 is principal protest demand. Sir, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and welcome everybody once more. I would say the protests have come. Not yet gone, it's still ongoing. Today is the 6th day. We have seen all of how it played out, still playing. We have seen the carnage. We have seen all the other interests that jumped in. The ones who began to loot, the ones who began to destroy and burn down things, the ones who introduced the Russian flags in some of the, hot centers. We recall that before the protests went on the way, Ninas had done a few town halls to alert those who were planning to protest, and the government that was planning all kinds, that was throwing only intimidation out. Inviting everybody to dress back a bit, to define the nature of the problem that we need to solve. We saw the broadcast of the interregnum president on Sunday, where, like one who had to resume the campaign after the election, just reeling out the same things they had written into their manifesto, their wonderful programs that will turn the world into paradise. All such. where we are now is that no matter what else happens across the next 4 days, we saw the service chiefs, chief of army, chief of police, chief of custom, chief of navy, all of them, chief of air force, addressing a joint press conference with DSS, immigration, all sorts today, assuring everybody that they are on top of every situation. But we also saw the protesters, one of the identifiable leaders of the protests, it's Adeji Adeoju, that went to Arise TV. The clip that was played, the first clip that was played in this meeting, we heard him say that no matter what happens with these 10 days of protests, in terms of whether the government accedes or, no matter how it goes, that another protest that will not be announced. This one was announced for a month. It was everybody was preparing. They said that there's something that will not be announced that will come, and that the victims of it are the ones who are refusing to listen now. And so, looking through what has happened and what might happen through the next 4 days, the task of everybody that wants something to change is to look at why it was possible for government to carry on in the arrogance we have seen in the broadcast that happened on Sunday. Ninas had tried to guide the two sides, because no matter what, no matter what the government does in terms of resorting to brigandage, because we know where we saw occasions of where the government brought thugs to the venue of protest. We saw where the police will look away when those thugs begin to cause commotion in the midst of the protesters. We saw it in the NSAS protest cycle of 2020 when government came to deliver the thugs. They were captured on video, being delivered to the hotspots to start their mayhem. And so, what Ninas had, placed on the table, which has now become even more imperative now, is become more imperative for those who truly wish to see an end to the disaster Nigeria has become, to define the change they seek, and I could say we seek. Define the change you seek, and also the mechanism, frame the demands that could lead to the solution to the problems you are protesting. If you don't think it through and do it in such a way that it becomes something that can be enforced, something that can become a consensus, something to which government must respond in a manner that locks into a solution highway, then you merely waste your time. We told everybody that every single thing raised in the demands, every other thing is flowing from the Constitution, the Unitary Constitution of Nigeria, and that the demand sorry, am I still coming through?
Yes, sir, you're coming through.
Okay. And that the demand of the protests, which incidentally already included the scrapping of the 1999 Constitution, but because the flawed characters who included that demand were just they just took it from the public arena without they have not interrogated it, they've not understood it enough to be able to put it and press it, because you are going to war. You are bringing something that has to be addressed. You don't know what you are looking for, because if you know what you are looking for, you will arrange it in such a way that it can make sense and produce the outcome you seek. But no, there was a list of 14, change the scrap constitution, do this, do that. If anybody saw what Adams Oshomole, the one that is in the Senate now, that used to be governor in Edo, said on Channel TV 3 days or so ago, today is Tuesday, I think it was in course of the weekend, it was either on Saturday or Sunday. Adams Oshomole was on Channel TV lamenting why scrapping of constitution should be a demand, because he said it was beyond the powers of the president of Nigeria. Meaning that, if you look at him, you will sympathize with him, because he had come to TV to try to explain the side of government. The government was, doing all kinds of good things that people don't seem to know about. And so, but at this one of talking about constitution, because the government can find answers to all the other demands. If you say they have to end corruption, they will tell you they are doing their bit. That EFCC had just abducted 20 people early in the morning. That's the kind of answer you get. Therefore, that they are doing well. If you say they should end bad governance, they will come and bring their own credentials as being better than what PDP did many years. They will tell you that they met a Nigeria that was in ruins, but they won't tell you that it was the same Tinubu that went to bring the Muhammad Buhari from retirement. The Muhammad Buhari that his credentials were well known to everybody. Not just for the incompetence, but for his involvement in what became the terror that marked his 8 years. The Fulani conquest invasion, his involvement with Boko Haram, that had nominated him speaker in some kind of representative in a meeting that was held in Saudi Arabia a long time ago. Life grand patron of Miyetti Allah, that was the proprietor of Fulani herdsmen brand of the terror we see all over the place. Muhammadu Buhari was at the center of all of this. He had always been so. He didn't become the Miyetti Allah grand patron in 2015. He had been so many years. And what was the reason Boko Haram would nominate him to be their, chief spokesman with the previous government that was looking for some kind of dialogue with them? And so we look back again at 1983-84, that terminated in 85, when the same Buhari was head. There was nothing Buhari, because he hadn't done anything to improve himself since the time he joined the army without school certificate. Other than just attending all kinds of courses for which they promoted, he hadn't tried to go to, specialize in them. Something you can do to say you are now, a lot better informed in this subject matter. Yet Tinubu advertised Muhammadu Buhari as a comparison to General Charles de Gaulle. He said, I remember very clearly, when they were, put him up as their candidate for 2015 election, he said that when countries get into trouble, they look for their generals. When the US came from the war of the Second World War, and things were not quite going well, they went to, who was the president that was, the one that led them to 1960 when Kennedy came, he talks about France that went for Charles de Gaulle. And so Nigeria will go to General Buhari to come and end the insecurity. You are bringing the head of the robbery gang to come and end the robbery, the serial robberies happening in the community. That was what it was, and that was what it played out to us at the end of the day, because the insecurity multiplied in intensity, the terror grew in leaps and bounds, and then he comes, the same person that coronated Buhari. He even boasted. I mean, the Tinubu boasted that, but for him, Buhari would not have become president. How can the same person that was telling us Oshekini Olule, Oshekeji Olule, Osheketa Olule, that is, that Buhari contested the first time, failed, second time failed, third time failed, until he, the Tinubu, came to town with him, marketed him, and coronated him. For the purpose of election, when he was maneuvering his way, that was good to be said. That will bring votes. Then you get there, and you are saying that Nigeria was on the brink of collapse, that the previous administration did this and did that. And you don't want to be associated with that previous administration that failed so woefully, that brought Nigeria to where it is now, in terms of compounding what was there already, going bad over the time, because it is the unitary constitution of Nigeria that is the problem. Those who wish to argue with the signboard can continue to argue until they become victims of that constitution. We told them long time ago, if we don't get rid of this constitution, it will get rid of you. If you don't get rid of this unitary constitution, it will get rid of you. All of those who have died, all of those whose businesses have been collapsed, all of those who have had to flee from Nigeria into the enslavement, the second, third, fourth, fifth time of enslavement to foreign lands. That's what is killing them. All of those who are now living with hunger, it is that constitution that is administering that hunger to you. The board governance we are talking about is flowing 100% from that constitution. Or should we come to repeat all the provisions of it that are responsible, starting with the preamble that lied, that we the people submitted our sovereignty into this union of death, and that we have agreed to live in, indivisible for all times. Therefore, making and giving us the constitution that took our lives away. Falsehood. There's nothing anybody can do about the agitations going on across the land in terms of those who are fed up with the union and wish to leave. Whether they were the Odo agitation or the Biafra agitation or the Jordan say they want a return to their autonomy and their assets, which they call resource control. Nothing can address all of those agitations unless that constitution goes down. Because if it does not go down, the false claim that you, the Yoruba, you, the Igbo, and all the others who are lamenting now, solemnly resolved amongst yourself to live in unity as indissoluble and indivisible nation, with the Fulani that are driving their conquest agenda against you. That will remain the claim. Your sovereignty will remain in their hands in the name, and they're operating as a federal government of Nigeria. Whereas there's no Federation of Nigeria. The Federation of Nigeria died in 1966, was buried in 1967, the day Yakubu Gowon tore the 4 regions into 12 states. And the illicit federal government he was heading now took over the economic assets. That's how we got to this highway to hell that the world calls Nigeria. The truncation of the federal basis of Nigeria that has left us with a unitary state held at gunpoint against all of us by foreigners, by foreign invaders aided by Britain. That's what we're living with. That's how we came about the 36 states, into which those 12 states were further fractured. That's how we came about several and symbolic government areas that will be listed in the constitution of a federation as some kind of third tier of government that has to be financed now, leaving us with, saddling us with 812 governments with thousands of bureaucracies. All of the money Nigeria earns no longer able to pay for those bureaucracies. For the people who are talking about cost of governance, it is a shame that they have education and they cannot identify this cost of governance. They cannot identify the source of this humongous cost of governance as the 812 governments that have to be financed. Anybody who is coming to tell you how he will cut down the cost of governance, that is not talking about dismantling those 812 structural governance. That is 774 local government areas that have now been added to 36 states. 36 states were already too many. With a federal government, a humongous federal government, we have 48 ministers now. By the time you check all the ministers and ministers of state and all the permanent secretaries and all kinds of, the MDAs are in thousands. That's for federal government alone. You go to the executive, you come from the executive to the legislative arm, you have 108 senators and 360 members of the House of Representatives. Each of them receiving more in remuneration than many heads of states across the world. Each of them. Look at it. Look at what it takes to look at what they get paid every month. Look at what they take from time to time unaccounted. Either they call it a constituency project. It could be 300, it could be 500 million for one person. Christmas came the other time. You saw when Akpabio was telling them to go and check their phones for alerts, ranging from 200, 300, 500 million per person. Oh, just take this for Christmas. In a country where people their constituents cannot find money to feed. You go and see the judiciary and the mess it has become. Because the executive had more or less swallowed them, conscripted them into the crime of operating Nigeria under a fraudulent constitution, as we have seen. Not to talk about the 68 items of exclusive list. The people living in this damnation, the people living in this hell, with all the education and exposure they have, but who do not want to talk about the source of that problem, the source of those many problems, whether it is corruption or the impunity they see, or the decayed infrastructure they live in, no electricity, the insecurity that is swallowing them in large numbers, beheading them everywhere, putting them in IDP camps. They are not interested in talking about even the ones that went to protest. We told them that elections will not solve the problems of Nigeria. They were the same ones who say, oh, leadership, misled by characters like Pat Utomi, characters like Peter Obi, that presents himself now as the alternative to what has gone wrong with Nigeria. You see him citing animal farm kind of statistics all over the place. Bangladesh come. Just nonsense. But where is the education of those he's been addressing? If they can't, if in the face of all the knowledge that's available now, they can't question him about which constitution, under which constitution will he take Nigeria from consumption to production? Under which constitution? Without a 68 item exclusive list, I do not blame him. I blame the people that followed him to election in 2023. And we told them that if you go to this election one more round, you've been going to elections in 99, let's even let 99 go because the soldiers had to leave. By 2003, it was already wrong to proceed to another election under that constitution. By 2007 was. Then we've had 11, 15, 19, all the way to this 23. With everything we try to share with our people about where the source, the fountain from which their miseries flow. Then you have the NGOs, they will turn up, oh, waste report, electoral reform. These are all the things that featured in the list of demands of those who were coming to protest. Protest to who? Whereas you had the option of crafting demands that will look into the source of the problem. What harm would it have done these protesters if they said the Constitution of Nigeria, the Unitary Constitution of Nigeria 1999, is the source of all the problems that has brought our country to where it is? Our demand at this time is an acknowledgement of that fact and a commitment to definite processes by which that constitution will be dismantled and decommissioned. NINAS offer them ready to use, ready-made, except they do not want an end to corruption, except they do not want an end to the hunger. Somebody may say, why is the constitution also responsible for hunger? Yes. How? The money that should have been available to you is swallowed by the humongous cost of governance, paying for the greed of the politicians that swear to defend and uphold the constitution that secure them and expose you to the poverty. Second, the insecurity that is flowing from that same constitution is reason the farmers can no longer farm, and therefore the foods are not there coming from the farms. Unless that constitution goes down, the insecurity is not going nowhere. And so, back to hunger and where it's coming from. Then you come to even the devaluation, the deliberate devaluation of the naira. We are still explaining where the hunger is coming from. The little money that's available, that used to buy the basic food items for families, no longer enough, because the ones operating Nigeria under this inefficient, this demonic constitution have to borrow money every day from everywhere they can find. IMF will then dictate the valuation they must do. Every time these Western lenders give you money, listen to Kenya, listen to what Guardian of UK wrote about Kenya, and put Nigeria in place of Kenya to see whether it's not the same thing. These people want to bring your economy down. The neo-colonial forces want to ruin your life so that they can make you remain the source of their raw materials. You remain, they come to take whatever they want to take from here at their own on their own terms. So they can come and take your crude oil at next to nothing, process it and bring back to you, commanding figures that could be 100 times what you sold your crude oil for. Because when you look at all the byproducts that come back to you as finished product, yet you have millions of unemployed, school graduates. Why is it so? The refineries are locked down. The refining capacity is locked down by the exclusive list in your constitution, and so they have to. The people who are upholding that constitution have to buy this finished product at exorbitant prices that are then sold to you, and because they have to continue to pretend that they have a foreign reserve, they borrow dollar money all the time to try to support the value of the naira they are putting the naira in a fight it cannot win against the dollar in which they sell their crude. So at every turn, they are borrowing more money to finance these 812 governments, because that's the main expenditure, paying for this number of bureaucracies. As they borrow the money, they devalue your own as a condition, because that's the condition IMF will always attach, or anybody, there's always something that will lower the value of your naira. So the naira in your hand is no longer able to buy even the little you could buy before. It can only buy 1/3 or 1/4 of what it used to buy. How did it get to that? Because of that constitutional arrangement. Nothing is going. No matter how much grammar they speak, no matter what claims they make about how they're going to renew your hope, anybody whose hope is renewed by this scam that you can see can be called a hopeless person, and it will be a proper description. And so that is where the hunger is coming from. A combination of these four things I've told you now. And no matter how much of palliative, and you need to go to Oxford Dictionary or whichever dictionary you find to check the meaning of palliative, because that's all they're doing now. They're throwing palliatives at you. Palliative is just to like something to soothe the pain for the moment. They are not addressing. You listen to the speech and broadcast of Sunday 2 days ago of interim President Bola Tinubu, you will see that he did not address anything of what the protesters were talking about, and he could do that because they didn't say anything that could command a response other than what Tinubu had gone to reel out his campaign manifesto all over again. They are not interested in talking about even the ones that went to protest. We told them that elections will not solve the problems of Nigeria. They were the same ones who say, oh, leadership, misled by characters like Pat Utomi, characters like Peter Obi, that presents himself now as the alternative to what has gone wrong with Nigeria. You see him citing animal farm kind of statistics all over the place. Bangladesh come. Just nonsense. But where is the education of those he's been addressing? If they can't, if in the face of all the knowledge that's available now, they can't question him about which constitution, under which constitution will he take Nigeria from consumption to production? Under which constitution? With that 68-item exclusive list, I do not blame him. I blame the people that followed him to election in 2023. And we told them that if you go to this election one more round, you've been going to elections in 99. Let's even let 99 go because the soldiers had to leave. By 2003, it was already wrong to proceed to another election under that constitution. By 2007 was. Then we've had 11, 15, 19, all the way to this 23. With everything we try to, share with our people about where the source, the fountain from which their miseries flow. Then you have the NGOs. They will turn up. Oh, where's report? Electoral reform. These are all the things that featured in the list of demands of those who were coming to protest. Protest to who? Whereas you had the option of crafting demands that will look into the source of the problem. What harm will it have done these protesters if they said the Constitution of Nigeria, the Unitary Constitution of Nigeria 1999, is the source of all the problems that has brought our country to where it is? Our demand at this time is an acknowledgement of that fact and a commitment to definite processes by which that constitution will be dismantled and decommissioned. NINAS offered them ready to use, ready-made, except they do not want an end to corruption, except they do not want an end to the hunger. Somebody may say, why is the constitution not also responsible for hunger? Yes. How? The money that should have been available to you is swallowed by the humongous cost of governance, paying for the greed of the politicians that swear to defend and uphold the constitution that secure them and expose you to the poverty. Second, the insecurity that is flowing from that same constitution is reason the farmers can no longer farm, and therefore the foods are not there coming from the farms. Unless that constitution goes down, the insecurity is not going nowhere. And so, back to hunger and where it's coming from. Then you come to even the devaluation, the deliberate devaluation of the naira. We are still explaining where the hunger is coming from. The little money that's available that used to buy the basic food items for families no longer enough because the ones operating Nigeria under this inefficient, this demonic constitution have to borrow money every day from everywhere they can find. IMF will then dictate the valuation they must do. Every time these Western lenders give you money, listen to Kenya, listen to what Guardian of UK wrote about Kenya, and put Nigeria in place of Kenya to see whether it's not the same thing. These people want to bring your economy down. The neo-colonial forces want to ruin your life so that they can make you remain the source of their raw materials. You remain. They come to take whatever they want to take from here at their own on their own terms, so they can come and take your crude oil at next to nothing, process it and bring back to you, commanding figures that could be 100 times what you sold your crude oil for. Because when you look at all the byproducts that come back to you as finished product, yet you have millions of unemployed, school graduates. Why is it so? The refineries are locked down. The refining capacity is locked down by the exclusive list in your constitution. And so they have to, the people who are upholding that constitution have to buy this finished product at exorbitant prices that are then sold to you. And because they have to continue to pretend that they have a foreign reserve, they borrow dollar money all the time to try to support the value of the naira the same they are putting the naira in a fight it cannot win against the dollar in which they sell their crude. So at every turn, they are borrowing more money to finance these 812 governments, because that's the main expenditure, paying for this number of bureaucracies. As they borrow the money, they devalue your own as a condition, because that's the condition IMF will always attach, or anybody, there's always something that will lower the value of your naira. So the naira in your hand is no longer able to buy even the little you could buy before. It can only buy 1/3 or 1/4 of what it used to buy. How did it get to that? Because of that constitutional arrangement. Nothing is going. No matter how much grammar they speak, no matter what claims they make about how they're going to renew your hope, anybody whose hope is renewed by this scam that you can see can be called a hopeless person, and it will be a proper description. And so that is where the hunger is coming from. A combination of these 4 things I've told you now. And no matter how much of palliative, and you need to go to Oxford Dictionary or whichever dictionary you find to check the meaning of palliative, because that's all they're doing now. They're throwing palliatives at you. Palliative is just something to soothe the pain for the moment. They are not addressing. You listen to the speech and broadcast of Sunday 2 days ago of interim President Bola Tinubu, you will see that he did not address anything of what the protesters were talking about. And he could do that because they didn't say anything that could command a response other than what Tinubu had gone to reel out his campaign manifesto all over again. Where do we go from here? First, to those who went out to protest, NINAS has its own programs, its own processes, its own template for how it will get to its destination of taking down that constitution, terminating the union of death anchored on it, restoring the sovereignties hijacked by that constitution for a renegotiation, reconfiguration, and reconstruction of the defunct Federation of Nigeria, either to a proper federation, a confederation, or independent units of sovereign states, successor sovereign states. And so, the fact that the protests turned up at this time, maybe influenced by what was going on in Kenya, people were suffering, and it was the same, along the same lines, the same recklessness of government taking IMF loan and ruining their lives. And so there was this build-up of emotions, sentiments. Oh, let's go and protest. End bad governance. What is the meaning of end bad governance? When you subscribe to a constitution that guarantees the bad governance, what is the meaning of end corruption? When you subscribe to a constitution that creates and protects corruption, beneficiaries of corruption. And so, what should happen? And before I begin to talk about what should happen, again, we speak to government, because we are speaking to the two sides. The two sides are equally guilty in embracing the constitution that is the reason for the state of this country and for the state of the black man. Those in government house, whether they're in the executive branch or they're in the legislative branch or in the judicial branch, they all subscribe to that constitution. Those who are contesting election under that constitution to come to replace them for better leadership, again, they are equally guilty because they subscribe to that constitution. It's because of them that we go to election every 4 years. It's because of them that constitution receives a new life when the winners of those elections will come to swear to defend and uphold that constitution, and the lives of the citizens and the peoples of Nigeria continue to degenerate into what we have seen. That's on the side of the government, and all of those who are now protesting one thing or the other. They all subscribe to that constitution. So, like we said before, we have no sympathy to whatever might go wrong between them in this fight of making the place better. It cannot get better under that constitution. You cannot subscribe to that constitution and be talking about anything that will get better, whether it's government or the protesters. And so Ninas still stands saying, because things are only going to get worse, we can continue to block our ears until the flood comes. The place will go up in smoke, no doubt. No matter what anybody does, unless you go to turn off the tap, the flood will come. It's already in sight. It's already coming. Because we can see that there's nothing happening in government circle that might address the problems even in 10 years, even in 20 years. We're on the wrong road. The the thing to do is to make a U-turn and look for the right road. Ninas had placed on the table something that was built on the correct diagnosis of what went wrong with Nigeria, on the correct prescription of what needs to be done, and with an alliance and a consensus behind that plan of what to do to correct the situation. The only people missing are those in government house sharing the blood of the people every month in the name of allocation, and their collaborators outside government who seek to replace them every 4 years. The political parties and the churches, the religious leaders who share their loot with them, and the NGOs that go talking about democracy that we don't have and the benefits of democracy that will come. And so Nina said to all the two sides, the government and the protesters, the first step to take, because the government might think it has control. Today they called out their service chief to come and begin to talk, announce all kinds of heavy things they are doing. That's one side of the story. Has that addressed any of the things we are talking about, or is it palliative that will address hunger if you don't address the question of insecurity that chases out the farmers, how will the farm be operational? If you don't bring down this condition to free the capacity to generate and transmit electricity, how will we get electricity that will bring us to production? If we don't dismantle this constitution to free the refining capacity, where will we get the petroleum products from? Rather than importing with a naira that is already been beaten there, black and blue everywhere. Then you have to go back to IMF to borrow some more. And what are you doing with all that borrowed money? Other than to finance the greed of this less than 1% governing the rest of 220 or 30 million people. I do not blame that less than 1%. I blame the rest of that 230 million that are not willing to listen, that are not willing to learn, and they are perishing in their ignorance in large numbers. Every day they come and say, oh, we never agree. You saw El Buba leading some of you are prepared to lead them to come and say you want good governors, end to bad governors, but you subscribe to the constitution under which you are mobilizing for PVC. (2027) is still lying there 3 years ahead. The ones whose lives will be ruined further in that 2027, if they go to another election, they are not listening now. The demand of this protest, like we saw the one that went to, I'm sure some of us saw the video that went viral at the Nigerian embassy in New York, where you saw that lady really not accurately. She was telling the people what they were listening, the people that came out from the embassy to listen to them, and those everybody present, that this is what is happening to our people. They are running away from their homeland. Some of them die on the desert trying to cross over to Europe. Some die in the Mediterranean Sea. The other ones that get across, they're just enslaved, that they're living a miserable life because their country is no longer, a place to live. That they want to go back home if there was a Nigeria to return to. And then you saw on the placard she had, End-1999 referendum. Now, that was the only. How did she get to that conclusion? Because she had the discipline to understand that the solution to the problem is to take down the constitution that is the source of the problem. How come such placards did not feature in the protests inside Nigeria? Fuel subsidy. If you say restore fuel subsidy, is that a sustainable solution? If you say take down that constitution, all the other demands will be met at the time you are now reworking. It is by removing the source of the problem that you solve the problem. Everything is palliative. The ones who are demonstrating, who went to demonstrate, if we were to ask, is it for the palliatives of those things you are complaining about that you want, or a solution that can become the solution? Because the government is throwing all kinds of palliatives. Oh, we remove import duty for 6 months. The other one say we remove 50% of our basic standard, which comes to less than 1% of what they take away. What they are offering to concede to help solve the problem. I mean, the members of National Assembly that say they will forfeit 50% of their basic salary for 6 months. Is it not criminal? Is it not criminal? What does it come to? Or who is it that doesn't know that what they take away is a far cry from what is listed as their basic salary? You saw the one in their chambers at plenary, breaking down all of what they take every month. And when you now add that to constituency project allowance and the ones they pull from time to time, and the palliative that the president sent to them in form of vehicles that cost 160 million a piece, and all kinds of other things they don't declare, they don't disclose. You would then see that it is an insult on the collective intelligence of the Nigerian people for the same characters to pretend that they are contributing to a solution to the problem. What have they said about the humongous cost of governance coming from 812 governments? But can we blame them? Who are the beneficiaries of that crime? While leaving the victims of that crime who go to vote for them every 4 years to sustain that constitution. If you ask me, the first blame must go to the lunatics that go to vote under that constitution that guarantee their misery. Because even now, they are not discussing it at all. They have 3 years now to get rid of that constitution. They will be playing deaf and dumb until the time comes again. The same criminals will come to mobilize them. They will go and vote again. Characters like Showore will be hoping that he will contest and win, and then come and provide great leadership under a constitution that makes it impossible for anything to go straight. And so I'm sure some of us saw the broadcast by our brother Emeka on Twitter.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Right. And so, as the protests wind down, because it's bound to wind down, they say 10 days, we are the 6th day. As the protests wind down, this is the time, this is again the time for those who will be the victims of the flood coming to dress back, listen to what can be done, adopt what can solve this problem. The Nina's 5-point proposition is the solution to Nigeria at this time. Because under that proposition, even the inconclusive election of 2023 that has produced this interregnum can be transformed, can be converted into a transitioning, so that that constitution that is the problem can be reworked. Every other solution anybody is proffering, some say, oh, let's go and do amendment. Others say, oh, let's just some even say hold the governors accountable, hold the government accountable under a constitution that absolves them from accountability by immunity provision. The time to listen is now. For those who want to save themselves, Nigeria died a long time ago. The Federation of Nigeria died a long time ago. Nina's concern is not for that Nigeria that died. It is for the Nigerians that are trapped in the carcass, in the toxic carcass of that defunct Federation of Nigeria. Because that monster that monster that is now unitary Nigeria has to feed on human blood. It is that monster feeding on their blood that has translated into the hunger, into the bad governance, into the corruption. And so Ninas will continue to call out, but let nobody make any mistakes. Ninas has its own programs of what will solve this problem. Ninas invites everybody, even outside the paradigm of protest, to come into that process, including government. Because government has no answer to what is going on in Nigeria. You cannot build on a damaged foundation, on a damaged constitutional foundation. Everything you are building now, whether it is about economy or about security or about any subject at all, on the basis of this damaged constitutional foundation, is going to crumble down the road. It's going to kill many more people like we see them being killed now. If they did not go to the election of 2023 under the 1999 Constitution, perhaps we would have been, through what a transition would have brought for us if we went that route. And there's only one business to do in the transition: to go to rework those things that are wrong with the land. It is only in that reworking that you come to that exclusive list to say all economic assets belong to the people that own them. Arms and ammunition will have to be in the hands of the constituent components. In a place like US, for instance, not only do they have a police at the state levels and at the county levels, even private institutions like universities have their own police. They also have what they call the National Guard for each state. That National Guard is the equivalent of the military of any country. That National Guard is not accountable to the federal government. It is the fallback of each of the states to defend itself from things that from situations in which the federal government may be playing some prank, to aid one party or the other. The National Guard is the army, quite apart from police. The National Guard is the army of each of the states of that United States. That's how far their autonomy goes. Their economic assets belong to them. Of course, you pay taxes or whatever be the agreement of what to do with the rest of the union with what you have in your space. That was the kind of union we agreed to enter in 1960. That's the union that was abandoned in 1966. That's the union that was decapitated by Yakubu Gowon in 1967, May 27, 1967, when he fractured the 4 federating regions into 12 states. And we're still building on that rickety foundation in which those 12 states have become 36 lame states. Lame. Apart from one or two, apart from Lagos, that was never a part of the Lagos began as Lagos colony, so it wasn't Lagos was never a part of the mess that became Nigeria. It's not because somebody came to be governor for 8 years that it became what Lagos started as colony of Lagos. At the time, the rest of Nigeria was the protectorate of northern and southern Nigeria that became amalgamated in 1914. Lagos was always operating on another pedestal, which is why things are the way they are here. Not because we have seen, let that magic be replicated. Now let's see. And you see all the lunatics that speak for that interregnum president. And so, Ninas is telling the government of Nigeria that the solution to the problem is not to be throwing all kinds of theories around. The diagnosis of the sick Nigeria is its unitary constitutional arrangement. The prescription is the decommissioning of that constitutional arrangement to rework it into something that will work. And the treatment is to get into transition right away to go and deliver that reconstruction. For the ones who are crying and shouting for hunger and bad governance and corruption, again, Ninas invites you to embrace this solution package while it lasts. Otherwise, progressively, we're going to get to the point where unilateral actions of those who are choking here, because their sovereignty is detained by a document that has been defeated. And so they will take back their sovereignty on their own terms. They will take back their right to self-determination. They will assert their right to self-determination on their own terms. They don't need any meeting with anybody. The geography of it already settles itself. You may be hearing about the fault lines of Nigeria. Go and look at the map, all those maps that Ninas put forward. Look at them closely and consider the concepts of sovereignty and self-determination to see whether, in the face of this constitution that is a fraud, the constituent components of Nigeria will need any meeting with anybody, including the pretense going on in Abuja in the name of governance. If that constitution is the source of the authority and the power that is being exercised, let those who are drawing that power, let those who are drawing that authority from that constitution have a rethink. Let them reconsider their situation. Because the owners of the sovereignties that are detained by that constitution are going to go unilateral in the face of the miseries being thrown at them by people they can identify. We'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you for that insightful and thought-provoking presentation.